How come most startups fail, even when we have more tactics and strategies than ever before? Join the bedside chat of an entrepreneurial couple as they share what it takes to create a business with ease and in flow.
Hey there, welcome back to the second episode of Biz in Flow podcast. I'm Natasha Q.
And I'm Jachym Jerie.
And welcome to our bedside as we unpack our entrepreneurial day and what we've been through.
Today.
Yeah, trying to create a business every damn day.
That's right.
So, to unpack today, I want to honestly tell you that, boy, am I unhappy with the episode from yesterday?
Yeah, it wasn't very great. And here's why, because yesterday, Natty just jumped into bed. It's like, oh, we're gonna do a podcast and, just start doing it. And that was the first episode. But I just wasn't clear in what actually she really wanted. And so it was hard for me to give answers and do the podcast in a way that's satisfactory and is actually going to provide you with the value that we want. So this morning we reflected on that, and what did we come up with?
Well, it was really frustrating for me, the whole process, because I thought it was really clear what it was that we needed to do. We don't want to show you what exactly the tasks are within the business, because that's something you can Google, that's something you can find. There are courses out there. Everyone has done it, right? Everyone can show you how to build a business, all the tactics, but there's a whole secret behind the how to do it in a way that's sane, and how to deal with the emotional part of it. And by living it, I thought, okay, this is going to be the podcast. This is going to be the avenue to show you that. So I was asking questions to Jachym, like, hey, how was your day? Or how did you come up with this business idea? And in my opinion, he answered in this way where it was so what? It was answered in a way where he was answering the what, like how it came about, what it was. And it wasn't the underlying emotional component, the lessons behind it, the challenges behind it, the actual experience that I want to share with you. So I realized that Jachym has a different brain. He's a different person. I can't control him, meaning I can't just ask a question expecting him to deliver to me in a way that I want myself to. And that I was expecting something, I guess, telepathically. So I got so frustrated because suddenly it felt really hard. I thought we were like pounding this idea of the podcast to death because I thought it was easy. I thought it was simple. It was already clear to me. And I felt like I had to explain to him little by little, unpack it, show him the different parts, what I mean. And yeah, I thought we understood each other.
Yeah, and how do you feel now after we've gone through the process?
And by the process, he probably means like me breaking down a bit, crying for like 3 minutes, like getting back to normal, and then like carry on work. It's really interesting. It's really, really interesting because there are some things that are just natural to me. Like I don't even question it. I just understand things that way. And it surprised me, guys. It surprised me that to answer the same question, Jachym would have a completely different perspective.
Yep.
And I guess as a coach, it shouldn't be surprising at all because I constantly ask my clients, like, what did you hear? If they say, oh yeah, that's right. Well, what was right? Because I know that we can misinterpret things. We can hear a certain thing and understand something completely different. I know that when I'm working with a client, but it's funny that I forgot you're a person.
Not just your husband. Yeah, I'm a person as well. So what allowed you to move past this fairly quickly? I mean, it wasn't like you were stuck on it for like days or weeks. Like, what allowed you to overcome this frustration and then move beyond it and, seem to be okay with it now?
Well, it kind of went like this. if I can describe to you my little meltdown, first it was like, okay, is there a problem? I didn't realize there was a problem. Then the second stage was, oh my goodness, there is a problem. He does not understand me. I need to school him like a child and show him what my words mean. And then third step was, my goodness, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is frustrating, and I can't imagine having a business with someone where I have to deal with this. Like, actually communicate to a person, you know, like honestly, and see eye to eye. And I was like, I can't imagine, like, this is feeling hard. And then I started crying. No, I didn't start crying. My eyeballs felt the pressure, you know, when you're trying not to cry and your eyeballs feel like they're about to explode and you're like holding your eyeballs in. Well, tears, you know what I mean. And then I had to kind of let it out and then let it go. And then as that happened, I was just like trying to ignore Jachym. I don't know why, don't ask me. I was trying to ignore him. And he was so nice. Jachym the whole time was still trying to figure out how we can, you know, clarify this whole podcast and find a direction. And then I was just kind of like, just kind of ignoring him, giving him a bit of a cold shoulder. And Jachym just looked at me and said, do you see how you're closing your heart and you're like hardening? And I said, yes. And it kind of got better from there. Like when I realized that I was hurting myself and that hurting the business, hurting our relationship, that, you know, does nothing when you do that to yourself.
Yeah, but seeing that, I think that's what sets you apart, because you have seen it before, and so just noticing it was enough for you to be like, oh, right, I'm not going to go down any further this kind of destructive path that's just going to hurt me more than anyone else.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And I just want to remind you guys, this is a second episode, but in reality, that was like maybe 30-something hours into working together. First meltdown. Not bad, right, for the record?
Well, it allows us to talk about this and bring you some awareness on how you can possibly deal with situations like that can arise when you work with someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And it helps me to realize that when you're creating a business, you're going to have to deal with people. We're really not at that point where we can only hire robots or have robots as our clients. So you're going to have to deal with people. You're going to have to communicate with them. And what comes with that is that you can't control people. You can't control, to some extent, your employees. You can sign a contract, you have an agreement, but that doesn't mean you can control them. And the same goes for your clients, right? You can sign them on as a client, but that doesn't mean that you can control them from then on, or that you can make someone buy from you. So, good lesson.
Yeah, well, and as well, realizing that, okay, so you can't control them, why then fight against what's happening? You know,
right.
It seems like you found the acceptance of that I do work a bit different, my brain works a bit different, and we got to get a way of communicating that. So, and actually, you know, our brains working differently is actually an asset as well, because we can cover different aspects in the business, but it also leads to misunderstandings at points. But not fighting reality and not fighting another person, realizing that they're their own independent person, will make your life a lot easier.
Oh, yeah. I tried that this morning. I don't recommend it. But you can try it for yourself. Like, really try to control someone and imagine...
And fail.
Exactly. And imagine the worst case scenario. Like, this situation, I don't like it. It doesn't seem to be going well. And I just started to project, like, my future life in that same boo-boo, in the same mess, like, forever. It's just kind of illogical.
Yeah, but that's exactly... And this is... Guys, this is where what's really important is that we do this all the time, that we take something, we project it into the future, we make this huge kind of nightmare castle, and then we suffer because we don't want it. We are going to resist it as much as we can. And realizing that actually the power is within you, and that you're creating that in the first place, and you're believing that story. That's what creates it. That's a game changer in how to build a business where you don't have to struggle and you can be more in flow, because at any point you can wake up from that nightmare and realize that actually everything is still okay.
It was. It really was not a big deal that our first episode is not that great and we didn't have good, clear direction.
Yeah, and yet we still put it out there, so because we want to be honest and transparent, so you can see how we are growing as well and working those kind of things out.
Yes. Here are our mistakes. I hope you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
So how would you say the rest of the day was, other than that meltdown?
Well, it was very good, actually. I really enjoyed it. And I was reflecting on it, thinking, well, actually, we have the name Biz in Flow, and today really felt very flowing to me. Like, it was not very hard when I was writing out the target customer, who we want to talk to, who could be someone who would benefit from our services and what we will provide. And I wrote like 2 pages full with different characteristics and difficulties and where they're at in life. And that just flowed. And that used to be very difficult. I used to dread this kind of exercise of writing out your target audience. But this time it just kind of flowed. And then you came in and you add your own thing to it. And it just, it came together very nicely.
Mm-hmm. Very well. And I've got to point out that Jachym had a beautiful afternoon. Just in the sun?
Yeah.
Traveling to another city, seeing a good friend.
Yep.
It's a good life, you guys. I do recommend it.
It is very nice. And then afterwards we were trying to get the jingle, or Natty worked to get the jingle for the podcast and the YouTube video and this kind of stuff. And we were trying to see what is the right way of putting it, like the introduction of what the podcast is about, the thing that you heard at the beginning of this one. And how did that go?
It's definitely not my forte. If you have noticed, I'm not very good at just speaking directly in like short spurts, and I'm not good at keeping my language concise, let's say. So it's really hard for me to put into 2 to 3 sentences exactly what the problem is, I guess. The fact that all the strategies are out there, yet people find it really difficult to start their business. Like, emotionally is a really hard experience. So that itself, we know that, don't we, Jachym? But there are so many layers in which we want to help you guys and we know we can support you with, that it was just all confusing. Really, really confusing. So we went through different what would you call that, like variations of different.
We brainstormed and put out different sentences and words to describe what we are trying to do with this podcast, especially as well.
Mm-hmm. And then at some point it just got harder and harder, like more and more difficult. And then we did come up with some lines, and some of them kind of was really invigorating for me. I heard them and I was like, oh yeah, that's so catchy. Or like, oh my goodness, that's the hook. That's so hot right now. Do you want to share one of the ones that we came up with that I thought was really good?
Well, you can go ahead, because I don't know what you are thinking about.
It was like, this is like, listen to this daily podcast for an entrepreneurial couple who will show you where the money's at. And then I was like, oh my goodness, that's like so in right now. That's like, people will go Google Gaga over that. I think so, right? Because money sells, sex sells. Well, we're not selling sex, but money sells. So it was kind of like, oh, there was a lot of energy in that sentence. But then before we kind of finalized it, you said, okay,
We got to make kind of an ethical check here so that we're not going into a direction that we're actually not going to deliver, and that it is still actually aligned with what we're doing with this specific bedside chat podcast. And we realize, no, it's actually not quite there.
Yeah, it's as if we paused and Jachym's like, wait a second, before we move forward, I need to do a gut check.
Mm.
And that was really weird because we're like, oh, I don't know if that's exactly what we want to help you guys with. It's like, yes, that's, the money will come when you serve people, when you make an impact, right? And you put yourself out there, but is it really, really the core of what we want to show you guys and what we're ultimately living here? And it's not.
No, I mean, you can spin it in different ways, in the sense that we can show you where the money's at in a metaphor way as well, that it's not just the money that you're going to get, but a life that actually is fulfilling and happy and all of that. And that's not necessarily just because you have money, but because you change on how you relate to the world, and you change how you see the world and yourself. When you change from within, your world and the outside changes, and that, of course, is invaluable. But I just thought it was a bit too hyped and not quite as especially with this kind of more informal podcast, where we kind of more just go over of what we've done and how we dealt with things. It just felt a bit off.
Totally. So we did a gut check, but then that didn't make things like any better. I mean, what happened was, okay, it didn't feel right, so we tried to find the words that did feel right, and they still didn't come. So I think for the third or fourth time today, you're like, let's go take a walk. So sure, let's go take a walk. But to give it to you, it's a really nice day today. So we went out for a walk, and literally, we left the house, took about, I would say, 20 steps. We didn't even cross the road yet. And what were you asking me? You were like, give me some words, or...
I don't know, you just blurted out the line.
Yeah, it's just me, you guys. I was just talking. As you can imagine, I was just blabbing. But something came out that was really useful. So that's what you heard at the beginning in the jingle of how, we're here to share with you our journey and how to not struggle in this process and how to be in flow. So simple, right?
Yeah, and the funny thing is the answer came when we were not bogging ourselves down of having to find the perfect thing, but we took our minds off. We just went a bit for a walk, and just the pressure taking off the pressure seemed to have worked its magic, and suddenly the answer was there. Again, it shows that the struggle, the grinding, the trying to make it happen, to find the perfect line now, just doesn't really work.
Guess not, because that's not when it came.
Yeah.
I have to really praise Jachym. I want to take a moment with all of you and say that Jachym hasn't yawned once on this episode. Well done.
# Team J.
Okay, we're over that. I think that came from a really, I don't even know what kind of place, but how are you all feeling? I hope that this episode has really helped you.
Hope so too.
And we'll be back tomorrow to give you some more insights, the behind the scenes, the beside the bed type of reflections.
Inside the bed?
Right, but they're not with us in, I don't know where you're listening. And please, you don't have to comment and tell us where you are listening from. Oh, yes, we'll leave it at that. But otherwise, hope that this is helping you. And to really, I guess, I want to share that... Okay, I'm sorry, I know more words, right? I thought I was saying goodbye. But what I really want to share is that sometimes business is really not rocket science. Sometimes we make it into rocket science. We make it into something really complicated. We make it into something where we can, have breakdowns, meltdowns, all of the above within the process. But we've experienced an up and down today, but
Mhm.
that didn't hold us back from doing what it is that we set our minds to and what we actually wanted to do.
Yeah, it's just very human, you know, it's human nature that you have ups and downs. And there's no big deal about it. Just keep going.
You see? He's a good one, isn't he? Anyways, until tomorrow.
Until tomorrow. Bye-bye.
And we're off to bed.